on the screen right now, and Helen, and many of you watching, were all together in person last year around this time when we had the Future of Childcare Challenge, with which was co-sponsored with Spark Boston. And the goal of that was to unpack what are all the challenges to childcare and how can we be thinking creatively amongst our different industries and networks to come up with childcare solutions that work for everyone. And so I'm really thankful for some of our longtime advocates to join us and talk about how that has some of our strategies and plans have been impacted since COVID, what parenting looks like on the day to day, and hopefully leave folks with some action steps on how they can advance this work, because we have some opportunities here in Massachusetts that's really important in leading the nation in developing childcare policy. So thank you for watching. I think I'm going to hand it off to Tania first, since well, I know she can hear me. There's some technical difficulties.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
So Tania, tell us about the work that your office has been leading at the city and what that looks like right now.
Yeah, of course. So we started working on the issue of childcare about a couple years ago. Time flies, because our office previously engaged on, as you know, pay equity work, focusing specifically on closing the wage gap for women. And in those conversations, childcare came up time and again because it was preventing women from joining the workforce. It was preventing women from advancing within the workforce. The childcare workforce itself is not receiving compensation that really reflects the value that they are providing to society. And so for many reasons, it just made sense for our office to start talking about that and looking at it in the multidimensional way that you were just talking about, because it has to work for everyone, right? Not just the families, but also the workers, and don't forget the children, right? We have to make sure that this care is of high quality and really setting up our children to have happy and successful lives in the future. So it's a great issue because everybody is connected somehow, right? Everybody can connect to it in their personal lives. And I love this phrase that you always use, about bringing the personal into the political, and making sure that those struggles that we thought should be kept private because of just the ethos that exists, that, oh, this belongs in the home, don't air out your dirty laundry. So people weren't really talking about it, and the result was that many were suffering in silence, whatever struggle they had related to childcare. It was something that they felt isolated by or alone. And so we've found that talking about it is immensely important. And we found that as soon as you ask or bring up the topic, almost every single person that I talk to has a story to tell, whether it applies to themselves, their own experience, or their friends, or their family, or someone that they work with. So we've been talking about that. We have a number of initiatives, and I don't want to go into all of them, but they all fall in the buckets of research or supporting the workforce. The one that I'm currently most involved with is a fund that we created to support family childcare providers. So these are small business owners that operate a childcare from their home, and they are great educators, but a lot of the time they've told us that they feel less confident in their abilities as a business person, as an entrepreneur. Sometimes they don't even identify as entrepreneurs. So we've been providing them with capital, so small grants, as well as technical training to have them gain those skills and identify as educators, but also as entrepreneurs and small business owners, and know and feel strong that in their confidence, in their ability to balance a checkbook, even to do their taxes. And it's been really rewarding meeting those women that do this work day in and day out, because they do it not because they're gonna get rich ever. They do it because they love children, they love serving their communities, and for us it's been an honor to work with them.
So a lot of child care providers are small business owners, and I know that's your office has been doing a lot of work to help them get off the ground if they're, trying to build their business. Right now, because of the pandemic, what is the city able to do for childcare providers who might be facing even more barriers to access federal loans that are rolling out?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can talk through the two different phases of COVID um that we have done and address that. So the first phase, I guess the first couple of weeks were really focused on making sure that childcare was available for emergency workers. So everybody from people who are collecting our trash or working in a grocery shop or working as part of the healthcare system, making sure that they had childcare because as we all knew, but like it became re-evidenced through COVID is childcare is part of the infrastructure for people to get to work. So just like a road, just like transportation, just like workforce development and job training, if people don't have childcare, they cannot get to work. So that very quickly rose up as one of the priorities in week one of this emergency situation, how to make sure that emergency workers had childcare so they could do the job of keeping everybody else alive. And the state, the early care and education department put together a program, and we were helping support the Boston providers to make sure that that existed, both by providing funding and by helping these educators kind of navigate what it would mean to be open during a pandemic. Once that was kind of set up and running, we quickly pivoted to what you were just talking about, which is um, how to help the small business owners, especially like family childcares, navigate the complex application processes and just the complex navigation that you need to be able to access any kind of federal program. So Kim knows a lot about this and can talk more, but something we heard directly from them, for example, was the fact that again, they don't always identify as small business owners. So question one was like, do I even qualify? Is this for me? Like they sometimes don't see themselves as a small business owner. Once they do the application, like where is the application? And is it in a language that I understand? So for example, a third of the childcare entrepreneurs that we are serving are Spanish speakers only, or we have people who only speak Chinese. How to make sure they know how to access that resource in a language that they can understand. Another issue, for example, is the assumption from the people who set up the system that people are connected to other systems. In this case, it would be the banking system. Many of these providers didn't have a business account, and so in order to receive the loans, they needed to have that. So there's a whole other process then that they need to navigate. So I would talk about the importance of simplifying all of the access and all of the support that government provides so that people that are on the ground can really take advantage of it.
Thank you. Um, so I think simplifying is part of core to the mission of what Neighborhood Villages does also, right? It's saying that we can come up with better innovative solutions for co-locating childcare within our business community, within our neighborhood. One of my favorite things that I've heard Lauren say is when we're defining truly accessible, you need to be able to walk 15 minutes in January in Boston when it's really cold to your child care provider in order for it to be truly accessible. And um, and it's going to take big systematic work to create a system to sustain that. So, Lauren, I would love for you to tell us about what parenting is looking like for you and your family these days, and also what tell us about the work that Neighborhood Villages does to address childcare.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. Sorry, as I imagine Sasha mentioned, I can only hear 3 out of the 4 of us. So sorry for sorry for some delay here. All right, so the question I got was, what does parenting look like right now? And I think the answer is pretty similar to how it's going for any of us with small kids running around, or if you have friends or family in your life who may be quarantining with you, what life is like for you. So we have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I'll actually be shocked if you don't get a quick look at them, either because they're going to jump in my lap or they're going to knock the computer over. They're at least going to go screaming through the room. But, you know, I think that what has been really important about this moment is that, you know, we've known for a long time the role that childcare plays in supporting families' ability to go to work, and certainly the role that it plays in helping employees sort of be on the job and be able to optimize their productivity. And when you throw a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old into that mix, we're getting a close-up view of just how important childcare is to the working parent or to the working caregiver. And I hope that we're really able to use this moment as a catalytic point for change, where we really galvanize parents, and not just parents, but really, I say this all the time. If you care about gender equity, if you care about socioeconomic justice, racial justice, if you care about workers' rights, you know, this is our moment to really zero in on how childcare relates to all of that, and really, you know, ensure that our change makers have their eyes open to it, our large employers, because employers are getting you maybe wish that they wouldn't get this close of a view, but at least it really is making parenting public. So anybody from, you know, the worker to the employer really having a magnifying glass on this issue right now. And I think a huge opportunity here is how do we, you know, galvanize all of the different folks who are all in this together, and make sure that we do set up a stronger system that, as Tania said, you know, it needs to work for families, but it also needs to work for providers. And so we need a system that going forward sets up an opportunity for, whether it's childcare centers, whether it's family childcare, to run a business that allows them to pay their employers wages that they deserve to be paid, and at the same time is accessible for families, is affordable for families. Because if we don't, then I don't know how we expect our economic recovery to go how we would like it to. And I certainly don't know how we walk out of the COVID-19 crisis. We will have missed an opportunity to build a better future for all of us if we don't invest in childcare, because it's going to make a huge difference to who gets to go back to work, who gets, you know, different employment opportunities, and who then kind of excels going forward, because childcare is something that we can't deny anymore, right? It's not any individual family's issue to solve on their own. It's a collective necessity and a collective good, and we need to start investing in it that way.
So I know you can't hear me, but that was, I think, really exciting, because I also am really hoping that this is a moment in the movement where we are really able to all kind of relate to how hard it is to not have the option of childcare, and to be, sometimes it feels like stuck at home. I hear, you know, with your kids, or to just not have an option. And so how can we really use our collective power to take advantage of this moment? And as an activist, I like to ask my friends to imagine not just what reform looks like. You know, reform is, I think, how we have to act as activists, to just like make it a little bit better. But if we could really create a whole childcare system that works for everyone, what would that look like? So I think I'm going to ask Tania and or Kim to help share that question of what an ideal childcare system would look like. And then maybe Lauren can tackle it first, or we can all go around. Because Kim, I also want to hear what you think about that too.
Am I going first or Kim? Okay.
I can go first.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that an ideal childcare system is agile. There's no one type of family. There's no one type of child. And this is, I think, as Tania and Lauren have already said, an opportunity for us to, I wouldn't say reimagine, I would say imagine a system. For decades, for centuries, centuries, we've been piecemealing together what we think of as a system now, but this is an opportunity to make something that is actually real and usable and meaningful for all of the parties that are involved. And so bearing in mind the fact that if there is no one type of family, there is no one type of child, we need to make a system that is flexible to different needs, to different schedules, to different cultures, to different languages, to different family structures, all across the board. So to me, that's what it is.
What I would say,
I just want to say, if you liked what Kim said, if you liked what anyone said, then like this video right now, share it right now while we are live. I just remembered this public chat. You can ask us questions right now also. So don't be shy.
what I would say is that that's a great question, because Kim and I have been working on figuring out not an answer to that, but an approach to how to think about that. Because I wouldn't even call what we have now a system. It's just what we have built based on urgency, based on the fact that people have the need for this service now, and because their needs look different, so we have different pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that kind of fit together, but too many people fall through the cracks. So I think we need to build a system not from urgency, but really from democracy and from the ideas that people bring. So one thing that I'm very excited about is a project that I'm working on with Kim, is going out and asking people, asking caregivers, parents, everybody, the families, especially in Boston, well, if money wasn't a constraint, right? Let's say that government would fund childcare and we would make the investments that Lauren is calling for. What would we even build? We don't know. We don't know if we should build a public school for 0 to 3 year olds or 0 to 4 year olds, or family childcare for everybody, or we should bring in somebody to take care of kids in their home, or pay people to stay at home with their kids for the first however many years. Like, you know what I mean? If we had that money, we don't yet know the answer to that question, and it's because everybody's different. So we want to at least get an idea of people's thinking. So Kim's going to go out this year and go ask those questions to representative families in different neighborhoods, different types of families from all kinds of backgrounds, to just get a sense of how people are thinking about this issue and really build something that makes sense, and not just assume one type of family or one type of problem or one type of child, just like Kim said.
Should I jump in here?
Go ahead.
So, so I think I completely agree that we need to preserve a mixed delivery model, because we need to preserve parent choice. And while the 0 to 5 years are just as important as what follows, right? 0 to 3, 0 to 5, the different education experiences you're getting in those age groups are just as important as kindergarten and what follows. But we also do recognize that those are sensitive years and that families have different preferences. So how do we make sure that while we move towards a system that works for everybody, we do preserve parent choice? And as Tania was saying, we have to have parent voices at the, on the vanguard of this. And we also have to have provider voices too. So as we work into this, how do we, come up with a more equitable wage? How do we create a system that pays our childcare providers commensurate with the incredible value that they provide, not just to our children, not just to parents, but societally? And at minimum, we would argue, if we pay a pre-K teacher so much, say in Boston public schools, as it extends into universal pre-K, can we at least use that as a benchmark for what an early educator should make, and stop pretending that it's okay to exploit our labor force at minimum wage or slightly above minimum wage? Everyone may be enjoying the sound of my 4-year-old in the background. So I might have to cut out in a second. But it really needs to be a system that recognizes the importance of the provider and doesn't just pay lip service to the provider, but pays them a wage that they are due, and provides them with benefits. And it also needs to be a system that protects and provides for parent choice, but that also is affordable to families. So, I think we've all, been thinking about this a lot, but how do you get both? how do you get both a high quality system that pays educators and family affordability? You only get that by having your government step in and say, if this is a collective good, if this is a public good, we're going to finance it that way, the same way that we do K-12. And this is my daughter, Eleanor, who's coming to say hi. I'm going to mute myself for just a second here, but we will still be here.
Cute.
Okay, I just muted, I think, Lauren for her. So yes, if you didn't know, Massachusetts has some of the most expensive childcare in the country. And I believe that the average early educator salary is also $30,000. So we definitely have a lot of room for improvement already in that sphere. And I know that family care providers are some of the most affordable providers, and we're already a dwindling population. And I actually know this from Kim's dissertation project specifically. So I don't know, Kim, you want to add on to that, but I just wanted to give a shout out to your dissertation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that I was really digging into, is really thinking about like, why are family childcare providers going out of business so rapidly? And I think one of the things that I learned, maybe that might be helpful to share, is that one of the best things and also one of the worst things about having family childcare providers work in the realm is like, everything is so local and homegrown, right? Everyone is like co-creating what it means to care for one another together. And so it feels like family, and it feels like this kind of, I think Tania alluded to this earlier, where it feels like something that is very small and private. But at the same time, we have to recognize that what family childcare providers are doing is providing a key and crucial service to our communities and to our families. And so it's really hard to, I think we're feeling now especially to balance, like, how do we pay a fair compensation and wage and provide those support as a business owner and as an early educator who is a professional, and also keep that very like homey and personable and loving relationship of care between not just, you know, family childcare and child, but family childcare and family childcare and community, which is what they actually provide.
Thank you. So I want to bring us back just for a second to like actions that you can take right now to advance childcare. So one is that we want everyone to be making childcare public by talking about it, talking about what parenting is like during the pandemic. And we'll be talking about that in a bit ourselves. And you can also tag us on social media and use the hashtag #ChildcareNow. If you're an essential worker, you can use the hashtag essential parenting, because we know that parenting is essential. And also the hashtag make childcare public, because like Lauren was saying, it needs to be supported by the federal and state government if it's going to be truly accessible for everyone. We also have a number of bills that MassNow has been working on throughout this legislative session. One about having predictable schedules for workers, called the Fair Scheduling Bill. Another about using campaign funds for childcare so that we can have more working parents in office. And then another big bill, the Affordable and Accessible Childcare Bill, that is looking at making a full system that would work for all families in Massachusetts. So you can learn about all three of those bills on MassNow's website. And you can take action right now by, using social media, but also really importantly, what all three, Kim, Tania, and Lauren, have been talking about is the need to make sure that these policy solutions are being informed by our truth, by our real experience, by what it's like actually parenting. And so we also have a survey that one of our coalition partners, Strategies for Children, is disseminating to parents of young children. So if you have a child under the 5 or younger, please tell us in the survey what parenting is like in the pandemic for you, how that's impacted your work life, and that way we can make sure that we are centering parent voices in our legislative and advocacy strategy. So links to that are on the Mass Now Facebook page, and we'll be sending them out again after this call and all week and all month. But so if there's any other questions from you all, feel free to put them in the chat box right now. Otherwise, I think I'm going to end on, for Tania and Lauren, like what is parenting looking like for you right now? And also perhaps, do you have any advice for other parents who are trying to balance their work also right now while parenting? And then for Kim, perhaps what we can do as allies towards if we're not parents ourselves, to making sure that we are still working for childcare solutions for everyone.
So I would not dare give anybody advice because I cannot say that I'm excelling at parenting and full-time working during this pandemic, because it's hard. I mean, you have a full-time job and now you have another full-time job on top of it because schools are out and you're supposed to also continue advancing your child's education. Teaching is a very difficult job. I actually do want to shout out the BPS teachers that are teaching my kid, Miss Mary Ramirez, Mr. Achala, Mr. Chavez, Miss Strong, Miss Connolly. They're amazing. But this is creating a lot of inequities, because while I have great BPS teachers that are doing, twice a week, twice a day, circle time, and sending the kids, as much as, love and resources as they can. That's not the case for every child, and not everybody has that access. So I just wanted to shout them out. I will not give advice, but I will give one more action alert to the great ones that Sasha, you just shared. And this is actually for specifically the men in heterosexual relationships, because different expectations, and I would say higher expectations, are placed on women in terms of how much housework and care work they perform. Even in a very egalitarian relationship, it's been documented that women just take on more of that burden, and it's just resulting in a lot of the inequities that we already talked about. So I would invite men to, one, do contribute their share of housework and care work if they can contribute more than what they think is their share, because again, sometimes you don't realize that the expectations you have of yourself are reflecting what everybody's expectations are. So maybe you don't expect as much as a woman in a heterosexual relationship would. So I would say contribute your 50%. If you can contribute more, I would invite you to do that. And then make sure that doesn't stay private either. Make that public, because we can slowly change that social norm. And, men will listen to each other more than they will listen to women. So if we start kind of seeing that out there a lot more, I think it's going to help us move that needle. So it's not advice, but it's an invitation that I would put out to those men that see themselves as allies. And then, Lauren, the question was, how has parenting changed? And if you would have any advice for families.
So I'm going to echo Tania in saying that I will not dare provide any parenting advice other than to say to, my fellow parents out there, give yourself a lot of grace right now, that we are all doing our best. Your kids are resilient. We will get through this. And just to be gentle on yourself, especially, even if you're not working right now. It's a lot to have your children in the house with you and not be able to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And, then I think I would also say that parenting can be really isolating. And particularly when we can't all be together, in sort of person presence, to not hesitate to reach out to different resources that are there right now to help foster as much sense of community as we can over these virtual platforms. And then certainly if you need just to talk to somebody, the different mental health resources that are there for you, because this is incredibly stressful. Someone will do research down the line that talks about this in terms of trauma, because I think for many people, these are traumatic circumstances, and it's really, really hard to navigate when you have children at the same time. And then lastly, what I would just say to parents, and sort of I'd say this with a rallying call for the future, is to consider maybe your own childcare provider in a new light. I say this because before I got into this field, we're not asked really to think about the delivery of childcare. You know, we find, say, a childcare center for our children to go to, and we don't think about the business model, right? How does the tuition that I pay impact salary, or how does it impact hours of employment, whether they have benefits? And now, because of COVID, we've been asked or forced to become educated on that. And I think, again, it just really creates an opportunity to stand in solidarity and say, not only, do I as a parent need childcare, and I need it to be there when I'm asked to go to work, but we also need to make this work for our providers, because, I'll use one of my daughter's preschool teachers as an example. Miss So-and-so is incredibly important to my daughter. She's incredibly important to me. So it's my responsibility to make sure that she is valued as the educator that she is, that she's paid appropriately, and that we build a childcare sector that is much stronger going into the future, especially so that childcare providers are not on another roller coaster if we hit, economic uncertainty, if we do have to grapple with closures in the future until we can get a handle on COVID, that it's really, I would encourage parents to think about how they could stand, locked in arms with the people who help them care for their kids, because that's an important place where we are right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Too many. Did you go
Cool.
already?
Yeah. And I think for allies, I don't have children of my own, but I would say that for allies, not advice, but also an invitation in terms of, consider how childcare has affected your life, right? And thinking about reflecting on what that means and what that looks like for you. And it could be that as a child, you were cared for in a certain way, and that has led you to be the person you are now. Or it could be that you have, like myself, a niece or a nephew or a sibling who, you watch grow up, and you are thinking about and are concerned about, how they grow up and who's taking care of them. Or you could just be thinking about your neighbor down the street who does childcare and what that does for your community to see bright, shining young faces every day, or not, maybe at this point in time. And so my invitation is to reflect upon that, and then talk about it with your friends, your family, and most importantly, at this point in time, your legislators, right? The people who represent you in government, because they need to hear that you, as a person without children, understand the value of care as much as people who have children understand that value.
Thank you, Kim. That reminds me of something that we've all talked about before, which is that everyone has a childcare story. We just don't necessarily know them as our childcare story, because we literally all needed someone to help us survive in order to get to where we are now. So that was a helpful exercise for me, also as a non-parent myself, to remember my own childcare story. So we at Mass Now help our members develop their stories and turn them into action. That is what we do as an organization. Upcoming, we're doing this on Monday at our first ever consciousness raising training, which is a training the trainer so that you can learn about our priority issue areas and how to start convening feminists in your community so that we can amplify this grassroots movement. So we had 5 spots left before last time I checked. So they'll be going soon. So look for those events on our website and also on Facebook. And thank you all for joining. Thank you all for the work that you're doing. The personal is political. Thank you for taking care of everyone and your loved ones, whether that's in the person at home that you're living with or online. However you're connecting and convening and validating our feminist community is all important. And thank you for joining us. And thank you so much for our amazing guest speakers and co-hosts. And Helen, you're here with us in spirit. We can all do a round of applause for ourselves.
Thank you for having us, Sasha.
Thank you.
We love math now.
Yeah. All right, signing off.